All right, everybody. It says I'm live. I think you should be able to hear me too. I think we might have this all figured out. Thanks so much for being here on a Monday night. Let me know if you can hear and see me, and we will make things happen. I want to talk about some huge updates to this entire World War III type scenario that we're all experiencing together now, just so we can be on the same page and be aware of just how far things have escalated and where we're heading in the sense of global conflict. So, big thanks to everybody for being here. We've got B. Jones is here. Grisio Nemo says 5 by 5 times -1. Whatever that means. I don't want to math right now. Vision Preparedness, good to see you. We got Mr. Landfill, David Kramer. We got Shine 13373. 5 by 5, which means we are good to go. So thank you all so much. And of course, while we're letting everybody else come on in, I do want to mention that this support is coming from Midway USA, and they take care of me when it comes to making sure I can get on these live streams and be as prepared as possible for, I don't know, like World War III. So big thanks to Midway USA. And I do want to mention, if you guys don't mind, if you would vote for me in the Gundies, I think that would be cool. It's a award show type thing for people who do gun content on YouTube, and they are trying to put together something where I'm involved, which is very cool. So if you want to vote for that, I'll put it in the chat right now. It'll also be in the description as well as in the pinned comment. But I'm up for most influential male, which I'm not sure if I deserve. And then I also am up for most likely to survive the apocalypse, which I think might be more legitimate. So help me out with that if you don't mind. And if you go and vote, you can actually win prizes too. And they have some really cool sponsors. So that's something you might want to go check out. Now, we have a lot to talk about, and I want to make sure we touch base on just about every part of the entire planet, because that's how World War works, right? So we have to discuss what's happening around the entire world, and luckily we're going to touch on just about every single portion of the planet you can think of. Maybe not so much Antarctica, but we're not allowed to talk about that anyway, right? So, Matthew Braswell, good to see you. Glad you're here. Let's get this thing going. The first thing we're going to talk about is one of the most obvious things, but it's something that has to be discussed, okay? We have this entire situation occurring over in the Red Sea, and it's definitely becoming, let's just say, a little bit hot over in that region, and I have my concerns about where this is going to take us, but we have to be aware of what's happening there, and throughout this conversation tonight, we are going to make it pretty much all the way across the entire planet. So you'll see that there's a lot going on you have to be aware of, and I do want to mention anyone who's here on the replay crew, you're for the win. I appreciate you all. 3 commercial ships hit by missiles in Houthi attack in Red Sea. U.S. warship downs 3 drones. This is from the AP. This is actually being posted today, December 4th. Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Ballistic missiles fired by Yemen's Houthi rebels struck 3 commercial ships on Sunday in the Red Sea, while a U.S. warship shot down 3 drones in self-defense during the hours-long assault. The U.S. military said the Iranian-backed Houthis claimed 2 of the attacks. Only 2 out of the 3, so keep that in mind. The strikes marked an escalation in a series of maritime attacks in the Mideast linked to the Israel-Hamas war, as multiple vessels found themselves in the crosshairs of a single Houthi assault for the first time in the conflict. The U.S. vowed to consider all appropriate responses in the wake of the attack, specifically calling out Iran, after tensions have been high for years now over Tehran's rapidly advancing nuclear program. These attacks represent a direct threat to international commerce and maritime security, the U.S. Military Central Command said in a statement. They have jeopardized the lives of international crews representing multiple countries around the world. And this is actually something that you have to be aware of. This does create a lot of issues regarding anything in the sense of maritime security and commerce. And of course, we need our cargo ships to get where they need to go in order for global commerce to commence. And it's something we rely on at this point in time. Unfortunately or not, it is the way things are. So this is a big deal. This is why the U.S. has a presence there, because without these shipping lanes being accessible to these companies, we're going to lose a lot when it comes to our fragile economy. It added, we also have every reason to believe that these attacks, while launched by the Houthis in Yemen, are fully enabled by Iran. And that's another thing that you have to be aware of. We know that this is coming from Iran in the sense of proxy, right? Very much like how Russia knows that we are backing Ukraine. So you have to consider what this can add up to. And especially when you talk about alliances and who's working with who, things get a little bit more muddy in that capacity. Here's some recent developments, and this is just a good way to kind of summarize some of the things that are happening there. The attack potentially marks a major escalation in a series of maritime attacks in the Mideast linked to the Israel-Hamas war. The British military also reported an explosion off the coast of Yemen in the key Bab al-Mandeb Strait. Last week, the U.S. military said a U.S. Navy warship sailing near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait shot down a drone launched from Yemen. Before that, a container ship owned by an Israeli billionaire came under attack by a suspected Iranian drone in the Indian Ocean. So this is not an isolated incident. These things are continually escalating and more incidents are popping up. Okay. In Gaza, Israel has ordered more evacuations in and around Gaza's second largest city of Khan Yunis. Palestinians in the Gaza Strip said they were running out of places to go in the sealed-off territory that borders Israel and Egypt. And it makes sense. If there's only so much territory, you can only go to so many places. The attack began around 9:15 a.m. local time in Houthi-controlled Sana'a, Yemen's capital, Central Command said. In case you don't know, Yemen has basically been in a state of civil war for years now, and the Houthis control the capital of the country. So be aware of that as we move forward, because I am going to bring up some interesting points regarding the idea of separate factions operating out of the same country and how people might want to respond to that or may not want to respond to that, because that could be something we experience here in the U.S. in the future. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. The USS Carney, a Navy destroyer, detected a ballistic missile fired from Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen at the Bahamas-flagged bulk carrier Unity Explorer. The missile hit near the ship, the U.S. said. Shortly afterward, the Carney shot down a drone headed its way, although it's not clear if the destroyer was the target, Central Command said. About 30 minutes later, the Unity Explorer was hit by a missile. While responding to its distress call, the Carney shot down another incoming drone. Central Command said the Unity Explorer sustained minor damage from the missile. Two other commercial ships, the Panamanian-flagged bulk carriers Number 9 and Sophie 2, were both struck by missiles. The Number 9 reported some damage but no casualties, and the Sophie 2 reported no significant damage, Central Command said. While sailing to assist the Sophie 2 around 4:30 p.m. local time, the Carney shot down another drone heading in its direction. The drones did no damage. Okay? The Carney, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, has shot down multiple rockets the Houthis have fired toward Israel during the nation's war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. It hasn't been damaged in any of the incidents, and no injuries have been reported on board. The Defense Department initially described the assault as simply an attack on the Carney before providing more details. Now, here's something that you should definitely keep in mind. Houthi military spokesman Brigadier General Yahya Saree claimed two of Sunday's attacks, saying the first vessel was hit by a missile and the second by a drone while in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which links the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. Saree did not mention any U.S. warship being involved. So first off, we're getting contradicting reports about what types of weapons are being used or what types of weapons were successful. But the other thing is that they're specifically avoiding saying that they're targeting the U.S. ship directly. And of course, that's probably for defensive reasons because they don't want to have direct conflict with the U.S. in regards to their naval operations. But that is what they're doing, so it has to be expected to a certain degree, and we just need to be aware of the fact that they don't want those problems, but they're definitely trying to provoke them. So, moving on from there, this was a big escalation, and this maritime stuff that's happening over there is only going to get worse, and I needed some coffee. There's a YouTube channel called What is Happening with Shipping, and I definitely suggest you check it out just in case you want to kind of keep on top of maritime reports and things that are happening regarding the supply chain and logistics in our oceans. And let me go ahead and pull that up really quick. That way I can share that with you all. And it gives you good information, but the other thing that I like about this channel is that it brings up some things that I might not have thought of based on what the media is reporting on. And one of the reasons why I think this is a good channel to check out is because he brought up a really good point. This might not be a huge escalation in the sense of like everyone suddenly being in naval conflict, but where this gets really bad for us, especially regarding like people who are worried about being prepared and our financial situation here in the US is that, and I just put the channel in the live chat, so check that out if you'd like. But here's the thing. If these shipping lanes get destroyed or damaged or blockaded or anything, of course that's a huge issue. But what's actually happening right now is an increase in insurance premiums because this is now a war zone. These ships are being directly attacked, hit by missiles. We know they've been hit, they've been damaged, which means goods are being lost, crew members are being injured, liability insurance is probably going through the roof. And as these premiums rise, because they have to be insured and they have to pay additional premiums for being in a war zone, well, these companies are going to have to pass that cost somewhere. And a lot of that cost is going to end up coming right out of your wallet, because all of these goods that are being transported through that region eventually make their way into the western part of the world. So just keep in mind that all this activity is likely to make your life more expensive, even if it's not making it immediately more dangerous. And these are definitely considerations I think are worth keeping in mind. And I thought that his channel did a good job of describing some of those intricacies that you might not actually think about if you're just reading mainstream reports. So I also want to go ahead and talk about just a kind of, it's definitely related, and it's something I want you all to consider based on our country and based on what's happening here, okay? This is an opinion post from the Jerusalem Post, right? The Houthis, not Yemen, declared war on Israel. Opinion. This is from November 30th, okay? The internationally recognized government of Yemen, led by Rashid al-Alami, has not attacked Israel by word or deed. And this whole thing goes in to talk about how, you know, there's all these posts about Yemen declaring war on Israel and all these things, but in reality, it's just the Houthis who are operating out of Yemen who are actually declaring war on Israel. And although the Houthis control a large portion of the country, specifically the capital of the country, they don't control everything, and they aren't the internationally recognized governing body, so therefore they can't technically declare war. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up isn't because it's necessarily overly important to what's happening based on the situation there, but it's because as Americans, this is very similar to the idea of, okay, a group of Republicans actually went and attacked Mexico. But don't worry, like, not everybody's a Republican, so the Democrats didn't attack Mexico, only the Republicans did. So Mexico, you need to chill out because it's just the Republicans. You can't really, you know, go to war with the entire U.S. because the Democrats didn't do it. It was just Republicans, right? So if you look at it through that vein, you could kind of see how crazy things can get in a civil war type environment. And that's exactly what Yemen's in. So even though Yemen's government doesn't, you know, technically have like full control, but is considered the internationally recognized authority body, well, they're still going to be punished for the actions of the Houthis regardless, right? And that's what I try to say all the time when we have these conversations. It doesn't matter how you feel about it or what your opinions are. If you're the enemy, and you have to start acting accordingly in that concept, because I might not like what this person does or that person does, but if they think America is the enemy, I'm an American, doesn't matter what I think, right? And that's exactly what's happening there now. And even people in Israel are saying, you know, oh, well, it's just the Houthis. We shouldn't do anything about it, or we shouldn't, you know, punish people in Yemen because of the actions of, you know, a minority or a faction or, you know, a warring faction within a civil war. But of course, that didn't matter. And this is why I just wanted to kind of demonstrate that, okay? Israeli strike behind blast at Houthi weapons depot in Yemen's capital. Report, right? Now, of course, the Houthis control Sana'a, but it doesn't matter. You know that not every single person who lives in the capital of a country is part of the Houthis, right? So it's just how things work. And I really wanted to demonstrate this because we talk about it a lot here. And I think it's important, especially kind of understanding our political strife here within the country, as well as what's happening worldwide right now and the expectation of conflict coming to our borders, which we are going to talk about more in a little bit. So, Saudi outlet says missiles target precision rockets, drones in Sana'a. Iran-backed group denies claim, says explosion occurred at a gas station as IDF hints Israel not involved. See how these things kind of get muddied up during a conflict? Strange how that works, right? Someone says it's a gas station, somebody else says it's rockets and drones. The person who did it saying that they're not really sure if they were involved or not. Very interesting, right? But this just gives you an idea of what can happen regardless of, you know, what side of the argument you might be on, okay? It doesn't protect you from an incoming attack from an enemy force, regardless of, you know, what faction you're part of. Let's see here. So, we have Alicia Sterling is here. Good to see you. We got Jay Hutch as well. I don't get notifications anymore. I haven't gotten them in about 3 days now. Jay Hutch, that is just something that happens. So if you don't mind, hit the bell button down below and make sure you subscribe so you can get those notifications. But in reality, channels like mine just have that kind of stuff happen. And in all honesty, I made that video yesterday as just kind of like a fun video because things are heavy right now. So I'm just trying to have a good time once in a while to try to lighten the mood sometimes. We have to still like move forward and enjoy our life as best we can, right? And that video got like immediately flagged saying, you know, oh, it's not, you know, within our standards and we're not going to promote it and stuff. And I'm like, I guess, you know, I guess showing pictures of guns is not okay, but, you know, being out on the range and shooting guns is fine. So I don't know what the rules are anymore, I guess. So here we are, but that's probably why, Jay Hutch, that's probably why. So let's move on. There's a lot going on. So we know that the Houthis are backed by Iran. And even the U.S. Central Command just said, we know that these attacks are being enabled by Iran. Well, Iran is attacking us here in the United States as well. And I told you these cyber attacks would continue and escalate, and that some of these, back doors that have been made, we've been made aware of over the last couple of years in some of these major systems, well, they still exist and they're still being leveraged. And now what we're seeing is Iran attacking parts of our infrastructure that could be deadly if they manipulate them in a certain way, as we saw back in the day in Florida when the water systems there were overly poisoned with fluoride until somebody caught it and luckily, reversed the situation before it became a problem. But Iran-linked cyber attacks threaten equipment used in U.S. water systems and factories. This is from December 2nd from NPR. Okay, and this is what the screens actually look like in these attacks. Like this, it's like that scene in Independence Day when they finally upload the virus to the mothership. Like this is the type of stuff we're talking about. This is like it seems like it's not even real, but this is what they're actually doing. Okay, an Iran-linked hacking group is actively targeting and compromising multiple U.S. facilities for using an Israeli-made computer system, U.S. cybersecurity officials say. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency said on Friday that the hackers, known as Cyber Avengers, have been infiltrating video screens with the message, "You have been hacked, down with Israel. Every equipment made in Israel is Cyber Avengers' legal target." The cyber attacks have spanned multiple states, CISA said. While the equipment in question, Unitronics Vision Series programmable logic controllers, is predominantly used in water and wastewater systems, companies in energy, food and beverage manufacturing, and healthcare are also under threat. That's a lot of very important parts of our infrastructure, if you're asking me. But honestly, they tried to make it seem like, it's mostly used in water and wastewater. That's kind of important. I would think that, someone being able to manipulate our water and wastewater systems could be extremely bad, but what do I know? Luckily it's not as bad in some of these other industries, but it's still there. So this is a big deal, and it's actually, in my opinion, being underreported on. And I just want to go ahead and I like to get a pulse on where everybody's at and what they're receiving when it comes to information and intelligence based on, whatever media you're consuming or whatever else you have access to. So I just want to know if you were aware of the cyber attacks, and if not, if this is the first time you're hearing it, that's something that you should also consider as part of the problem. Let's see. I can't even type right now. I've got wires in the way. I'm trying to make things better. So now there's more wires. That's just how real life works. But I just started a poll. Were you aware of the Iran cyber attacks? So that way you can tell me if this actually showed up for you or if this is the first time you're hearing it. Because first off, it demonstrates why we have these conversations. But second off, if we're not hearing about things that are actually happening to us here in the U.S., then imagine when things get even worse. How slow is it going to be for us to be aware of what's actually happening? That's a concern of mine right now based on how the media is operating. So these compromised devices were publicly exposed to the internet with default passwords, CISA said. The agency did not specify how many organizations have been hacked, but on Friday, CNN reported that less than 10 water facilities around the U.S. had been affected. Oh, that's good, less than 10, but if you live in one of those affected areas, it could be more problematic for you than just saying less than 10. Cyber Avengers was behind the breach at a water authority outside of Pittsburgh on November 25th. The Aliquippa Water Authority was forced to temporarily disable the compromised machine, but reassured citizens that the drinking water is safe. I've heard that somewhere before. I feel like it might have been Flint, Michigan, or was that in Mississippi? I don't remember anymore, but I always hear that the water is safe. While it did not cause any major disruptions to the water supply, the incident revealed just how vulnerable the nation's critical infrastructure is to cyber attacks. How many more examples of that do we need? Obviously, it's extremely susceptible. There's almost no security. So what? I don't even know why that's a surprise, but honestly, we haven't even fixed it. So I guess it's not a big deal. If a hack like this can happen here in Western Pennsylvania, it can happen somewhere in the United States, or elsewhere, I guess is what he wanted to say. Senators John Fetterman and Bob Casey and Representative Chris Deluzio, who all represent the state, wrote in a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland on Tuesday. The lawmakers urged the Justice Department to conduct a full investigation and hold those responsible accountable. Yes, I'm sure they'll be able to track down these cyber attackers that live in the Middle East and hold them accountable to whatever standards we have here in the United States. That's not going to happen. It just makes everybody feel good like their people are doing something, right? But those are just empty words, let's be honest. So This is huge, okay? It also showed the scope and scale of Israel and Hamas's cyber warfare. Alongside the fight on the ground, both sides of the conflict are armed with dozens of hacking groups that have been responsible for disrupting company operations, leaking sensitive information online, and collecting user data to plan future attacks. We're now tracking over 150 such groups, and since you and I started to correspond, it was probably 20 or 30 or 40. So there's more groups and more hacktivist groups are joining. Jill Messing, the chief of staff at the Israeli cybersecurity firm Checkpoint, told NPR. That might be Gil. I might have screwed that up. In response to cyber concerns, Israeli authorities recently gave themselves new emergency wartime powers, which allows the government to step in if a company that specifically deals with cloud storage and digital services gets hacked. So, don't we love wartime powers? That never goes wrong. It could never have anything problematic occur afterward, right? I've never seen Star Wars Episode 2. Anyway, so just be aware, this is happening. This is a problem. We have to be aware of this, okay? Now, speaking of Iran, have they made their way into the Western Hemisphere? Almost surely. Okay, I just want to make sure to say hi to some people here real quick. Let's see, we've got eyes to see. I don't need to be grafted in. I appreciate that about you. Rip Curl Readiness, Northern Girl Hobbies, thanks for being here. Thank you for modding tonight. I really appreciate it. Porky Prepper, it's good to see you too. Mike H, I highly doubt Fetterman wrote anything, just saying. Yeah, that's true. I'm surprised he can actually still speak English. So, I will go ahead and just say that you're probably right on that one. Texas Surplus Pro, yeah, but we don't get Darth Vader. We get Kamala, which is worse in my opinion, because at least Darth Vader had a plan. So, let's keep moving forward. We need to talk about Iran doing other things in our area, not quite in the United States, but what about South America? Is that problematic? It's getting more problematic. So let's talk about it. Oh, and let's just check the results of the poll. So half of you had not heard about the Iranian cyber attacks. That's a problem. And you should be aware that that's why I do this live stream, but also why you need to search out alternative media, and that you're not going to find these things unless you're looking for them. It's very difficult to get on the front page of a mainstream news source and say, oh, look at that, cyber attacks. Like it just doesn't work that way anymore, unfortunately. So that means our enemies are doing a great job of fog of war and propaganda, but people are supposed to keep us informed are obviously not doing a good job of it and haven't been for a very long time. Now, the Maritime Executive, okay? U.S. sanctions freighter for delivering attack boats to Venezuela. Why is this relevant? I said it was World War III, and I said it was a huge update. And this is why, because it's everywhere now. And we have to really keep an eye on it. Okay, let's see here. And this was posted, just trying to find where that was posted again. It was in the last few days within this week. Why can't I find the post date? No, this is published October 19th. Never mind. This is to remind you of what we're about to talk about that was just posted, okay? The U.S. Treasury has blacklisted an Iranian vessel and its charters for allegedly transporting weapons to Venezuela, violating U.S. sanctions. Why would they be doing that? We'll find out here in a minute. The sanctions target Iran's Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces Logistics for sending UAVs, that's drones, and fast attack boats to the Venezuelan government. According to the Treasury, Modafil and subsidiary Kai have exported the Mohajer family of surveillance UAVs to Venezuela, where the aircraft is known as the Arpia. It has also recently been in talks with Venezuelan officials about the sale of larger and more capable Mohajer 6, which can carry guided weapons. Don't know why they would need drones. What do they need all this for? Iran's defense minister, Mohammad Reza Ashtiani, has allegedly overseen these transfers, as well as a joint oil sale venture that finances the Iran-Venezuelan weapons trade. Iran ships its excess volumes of light condensate to Venezuela, where it is blended with Venezuela's tar-like heavy crude to produce a more usable and saleable product. Oh, okay, so they're economically connected and connected through the sale of weapons. According to the Treasury, the freighter Parnia has been used to carry Iranian defense exports, including a recent shipment of PACAP-3 fast attack missile boats to Venezuela. The ship has been put on Treasury's blacklist as a property linked to Modafil. Okay, so why does this matter? Okay, it's just to remind you that Iran and Venezuela are working together and arming each other, and that, I don't know, Venezuela might be considering using some of those weapons at this point in time. Oh yeah, that's right, they are. So, and let's see. Tactisquirrel, poll is still white. For me, it shows the poll is good to go, so I'm not sure what's happening for you there. Hey, Jeff Millet, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Super chats are awesome. Make sure you guys take care of what you need to take care of when it comes to preparedness, but it's always appreciated. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Prepper Now, good to see you. Thank you for modding. And Julius Stryker, nothing ever happens. I guess you've been nowhere over the last 5 years or so, but it's cool. I don't really think that you're being serious about yourself if you say that now. So sorry, it's true. Welcome to real life. Essequibo, Venezuelans back claim to Guyana-controlled oil region. What do you mean? Okay, this is from the BBC News today, the 4th of December. Venezuelans who turned out to vote in a referendum on the status of a disputed oil-rich territory long controlled by Guyana have overwhelmingly backed Venezuela's territorial claim. More than 95% approved establishing a new Venezuelan state in the territory known as Essequibo, officials said. I do want to mention that any vote that they get in Venezuela is probably not super legit. But you know what? They passed it to make sure that they could do what they wanted, of course. Guyana and British Guyana before it have administered Essequibo for over a century. The referendum has ratcheted up tensions between the two neighbors. Critics of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro say he called the non-binding referendum to whip up nationalist fervor and distract from calls for free and fair elections to be held. Yeah, they don't have those, so that's the whole thing. President Maduro has been in power since 2013, had urged people to turn out en masse and vote 5 times yes to the 5 questions his government had posed on the status of Essequibo. The 159,000, 5,000, in case you didn't know, 159,500 square kilometer region makes up 2/3 of the total of the land currently controlled by Guyana. 2/3. So this might not sound like a lot until you realize how much of their country they're talking about taking over. That's a huge amount, okay? Venezuela has long maintained that a decision taken in 1899 by an international arbitral tribunal to award it to Britain, the colonial power which at the time ruled over Guyana, was unfair. The matter is currently before the International Court of Justice, although Venezuela has disputed the International Court's authority to rule on the Essequibo dispute. And honestly, yeah, if you're a country and you just say, I don't care what international court says, then whoop-de-doo, right? I mean, it's like when people are like, well, the UN said that's not allowed, or you know, oh, the Geneva Convention won't allow for that. Do you care? I don't care, which means they shouldn't care. That's just my opinion. You know, if it's war is war, who cares what a convention said? But whatever. Anyway, in the referendum, the Venezuelan government asked voters to back its stance on the dispute. Okay, so this is them saying that the whole country is basically saying they want to take back Essequibo. This is a problem. Now, they've been talking about this, and they're ratcheting up for war. They're ratcheting up for an invasion of Essequibo right now. And that's huge. This is another conflict zone that's about to erupt. And it's really similar to what's going on in Ukraine right now. So I wonder if they had, any ideas generated from Russia's invasion of Ukraine, or the fact that they're very friendly with Russia and work directly with Russia. But back in 2022, so a little more than a year ago, which yes, we do visit history sometimes to build context and talk about things that are going on in our world. Russia's war in Ukraine stirs Venezuela's dream of conquest in oil-rich Guyana. I couldn't believe it, right? So this has been telegraphed, and we've been talking about it for a long time now, but it's finally actually happening, or so it looks, because there's actually reports out right now that there's Venezuelan special operators already in the Essequibo, but, these are reports. So until it's verifiable, or at least put out by some more trusted sources, we just don't know exactly what's happening, but we do know that they're definitely getting ready for it. And Iran has been delivering the weapons, by the way. If Russia's invasion of Ukraine has taught us anything, it's that authoritarian leaders consider themselves above the law, unrestrained by the sovereignty declarations, human rights protections, and international institutions established after World War II to prevent future conflict. Like I said, yeah, they don't care, okay? And why would they? If they're just doing whatever they're doing. I'm not saying I'm on their side by any means. I'm definitely not. But to think that they're going to abide by these arbitrary rules that were brought up by other countries, is just silly. For Russian President Vladimir Putin and his ilk, the rules of international order were made to be broken, and his latest exploits show that, without a credible deterrent, territorial conquest is on the table. A powder keg much closer to the United States could be one of the world's next tests, the Guyana-Venezuela border, where there are two countries who have been embroiled in a bitter fight over a contested region known as the Essequibo. Now remember, this is from a year ago. Like, this is from a while ago. Here's why I wanted to bring this up. Maduro has vowed to reconquer the Essequibo. He told us he was going to do this, but they're doing it with the help of Iran and Russia, which tells you that this conflict is erupting here in the Western Hemisphere now. All funded and provided for by the same groups of people. This is becoming an allies versus Axis type of a situation. I mean, it already is one, but it's becoming more obvious, okay? This is a destiny Maduro seems intent on preventing, either directly or indirectly with Russian support. Putin has long extended a lifeline to the beleaguered authoritarian government in Caracas, helping one of Latin America's largest energy producers to offload sanctioned oil, providing personal protection for Maduro against assassination or usurpation, and sending the country tens of billions of dollars in military hardware. Amazing. Putin in the past deployed Russian nuclear-capable bombers to Venezuela and floated the idea of sending Russian troops to the country, supposedly to shore up its sovereignty. In February, Moscow had to clarify that its military aid to Venezuela would not be used against neighboring Colombia following Maduro's militarization of the western border. But Putin's backing, as well as his defiance of international norms, could give new wings to Maduro's territorial ambitions to the east. Venezuelan intimidation, particularly against Guyana, was already on the rise prior to Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Okay? So, this was all on its way. Now, here's the thing. ExxonMobil discovered a ton of oil in Guyana, in the Essequibo. Sorry. So, there's a lot of oil there. And guess who has a good relationship in the energy sector with Venezuela? Russia and Iran. This is not by accident. This is not coincidence. All of this is happening, and this is global. I'm just trying to demonstrate that because of all the naysayers out there. Nick, your video about salt was not only informative, it was hilarious, entertaining, and well put together. It might have been one of your best videos. Well, I appreciate that, Nick. And honestly, you probably don't have enough salt because nobody does. We all need more salt than we know. Porky Prepper, Magic is now known as the salt and prepper guy. I'm also good with that. Look, it's real. This is white hair. This is not dye, okay? Anybody who wasn't sure, now you know. Why am I wearing a hat inside? Because I've been wearing a hat all day and I would look silly otherwise, like you just saw. Anyway, plus people think I am, like peacocking or something because of my hair. It's just old age, all right? Anyhow, let's keep moving forward. I hopefully drove this point home so far. This is global. It's World War III. We're in it. We're living it right now. It's going to affect us one way or the other, either through premiums going up in shipping, which causes everything to cost more no matter what, whether or not it's war breaking out in South America, which, the United States will most definitely get involved in one way or another, whether or not it's just the fact that we have water systems being hacked, or who knows what else, right? So it just keeps piling on. It's not like anything has regressed, right? We haven't seen any de-escalation. So by not having any de-escalation, all we have is escalation, which means it's only getting worse. So to assume that we're still insulated, we're becoming less insulated every day. And right now, we're very uninsulated considering that we're about to see some conflict in South America. Not good, okay? BWT Lasseter 777. My guess was struck by lightning. Nope, not struck by lightning, but I get that. I am from Florida originally, so lightning capital of the world, actually. Anyhow. Also, real quick, I got to mention that Genesis Gold Group does support my live streams directly, and I appreciate them doing that. If you're looking to hedge your bets with some stabilized assets like gold and silver, make sure you check out magicpeppergold.com because those guys will help you out. They can help you roll your retirement account over into a gold-backed IRA or send precious metals right to your door. There's a lot of things they can do for you that I can't even describe because I'm not qualified for that. But what I can tell you is that they support this channel directly, which means you know that they're on the right side of things, let's just say. And at the same time, they are a faith-driven company, which means they run by a certain set of morals, which is why you don't see them offering free stuff or any of these gimmicks to try to get you to jump on board because none of that's really legit. So check them out, magicpeppergold.com. They help me out. You guys get gold and silver. I get lead and brass, and we keep this whole thing rolling forward. Now, I got a link in the description as well as in the pinned comment for you there too. I know. I got to bring up the sponsors, but life's getting more expensive, and I got some really cool videos I want to make for everybody, but they're going to cost some money. So we got to do something around here, right? Let's see here. Nick, thoughts on gold prices spiking? Gold is going very high now, isn't it, Nick? But talk to the Genesis Gold Group guys about that. They know a lot more about it than I do. But let's just say some of you might be happy if you listened to me like a month or two ago, right? All right, so not that I give any of that kind of advice. That's their job. I just talk about what they do. Anyhow, speaking of Russia, because they're involved with a lot of stuff that's happening lately, what's going on over in that region? Well, Poland prepares military response to militarization of Kaliningrad enclave. Kaliningrad, the little piece of Russia that got left behind. It's there still, though, and it is a very strange little enclave because, it requires special travel arrangements and all kinds of stuff for Russia to move back and forth between two NATO countries and, the EU. But either way, it's there, and they use it to their advantage. And since they're militarizing it, now Poland is militarizing their borders with it, and it's going to create more escalation as well. It's almost like this thing just keeps going. So, this is from December 4th, today. I'm trying to bring relevant new information to you guys. It's the best I can do as just some guy who likes to read a lot, apparently. Despite Moscow's continual rhetoric about NATO military base advancements drawing closer to the Russian border, the Kremlin has actively invested in the militarization of the Kaliningrad region on the borders of Poland and Lithuania. Since 2016, Russia has significantly bolstered its military presence in Kaliningrad by deploying troops, modern weaponry, and forming the 11th Army Corps. The Kremlin even stationed operational tactical missile complexes Iskander in Kaliningrad, capable of carrying nuclear warheads. The military grouping in Kaliningrad was further reinforced with the Bastion coastal missile system. And we're going to talk about how they've actually even reinforced that further here right after we get done with this article. But Russia's investing in some interesting equipment that's going to be delivered directly to Kaliningrad, or at least stationed there in some degree. And that's looking like there could be some issues over there. Okay. The heightened militarization of Kaliningrad allows the Kremlin the potential to seize a portion of Poland's Suwalki corridor, a strip of land less than 80 kilometers long that separates Belarus from Kaliningrad. All right. And they have that demonstrated right here. This little yellow strip right here, which they would love to have access to so they could just connect those two countries, as Belarus is obviously Russia-friendly. The Suwalki Gap, turned a strategic point of NATO's eastern flank by experts, connects Belarusian territory to the Kaliningrad region, ensuring the Baltic countries' connection with other NATO members. Okay. Now, let's see here. Nearly 2 years of warfare in Ukraine have prompted a reinforcement of the Polish army, notably in the Warmian-Masurian Voivodeship. Over the past year, decisions have been made to expand and equip units in this region. Poland's 16th Mechanized Division has received modern armaments, including new self-propelled howitzers, K9s from South Korea, and globally recognized HIMARS missile systems. The 16th Division currently comprises around 12,000 soldiers. Additionally, Polish forces have begun constructing a new barrier in border areas, similar to the one built a year ago between Poland and Belarus. The decision to build temporary borders or barriers on the Polish-Russian border stems, among other reasons, from the opening of air links between the Kaliningrad region and the Middle East and North Africa. None of that's connected, though, right? There's no way the entire world is involved in any of these things that are going on right now. But somehow, every time you just talk about one thing, all these other places just keep showing up, like the Middle East and North Africa and Poland. Why are we talking about that? All these actions have evoked a strong reaction from Russians. For instance, in March of this year, Russian Army General and State Duma Deputy Andrei Gurilev published a post on social media. Russia will aim missiles at Poland in response to the placement of American artillery on the border with the Kaliningrad region, wrote the Russian military official. So Poland is building up its military force right there on the border with Kaliningrad because Russia's doing the same thing, which means there's actually a good reason to believe we're going to see even more action there here very soon. But there's good reason for why Poland is doing this. Also, jump back in the chat here for a second. Let's see here. We got Dave Womack. Would love to see more night vision stuff on your channel. Dave, you got it. I think I can provide. Let's see here. And honestly, just to bring that up really quick, I'm going to talk about it in the sense of what it's good for regarding preparedness. It doesn't always have to involve firearms, right? Night vision has a lot of applications that don't have to do anything with Gucci rifles or anything like that. Like, there's a lot of things you can use night vision for that have nothing to do with running around and shooting guns. So that's my goal in the next video I put out specifically on night vision, is to show it in a practical application that has nothing to do with like tactical stuff, because there's a lot of things you can use it for that you don't need to have any of that for. And someone who does it, like literally doesn't even own a gun, would still benefit from owning night vision. And unfortunately, there's a misconception that you have to have both and that they kind of require this like tandem expensive relationship with each other in order for it to be maximized. But in reality, night vision provides a lot of things that would almost be considered more practical and more reasonable than even what firearms provide, based on the amount of use you would get from them, right? So these are just things to keep in mind. Now, Eric El Toro says Poland is the target. Well, let's talk about it, okay? The Eurasian Times. This is from December 2nd, 2 days ago. Russian Air Force getting bigger, better as new batch of Su-30 SM-2s and Yak-130s delivered by manufacturer. In what is expected to bolster the combat capability of the Russian Air Force, Irkutsk Aviation Plant of the United Aircraft Corporation handed over a batch of multifunctional Su-30 SM-2 fighters and Yak-130 combat training aircraft to the aerospace forces of Russia. Now, I'm not an expert on military hardware and equipment, but my understanding of the Su-30 SM-2s is that they're basically enhanced versions of like the Su-30s, where they are able to travel longer distances and have more capable weapon systems, including nuclear capable systems. So be aware of that, okay? Irkutsk Aviation Plant timely implements the plan for producing new aircraft within the framework of the State Defense Order. A batch of Yak-130 combat training aircraft is completing deliveries of this type of aircraft under the current year's program. Another Su-30 SM-2 will arrive in Russia. The company has already started aircraft production under next year's program, said a press release published by UAC. The corporation also notified that the aircraft passed the necessary ground and flight tests and went to the place of service. The latest delivery comes just months after the last batch of Su-30 SM-2 was delivered to the Russian Aerospace Forces in July this year. This suggests that the production and testing of this cutting-edge fighter jet is proceeding in full force. The Russian Air Force and the Navy employ the Su-30 SM-2 fighters, an upgraded version of the Su-30 SM. The Su-30 SM-2 features improved onboard radio electronic equipment. The new radar would also allow strikes on targets on land, in the air, and at sea from several hundred kilometers away when paired with new precision weapons. Okay? The modernized variant has a more powerful AL-41F S1 engine, Ibris NO-35 radar, improved avionics, and modern weapons. Interestingly, the AL-41F S1 engine and the Ibris NO-35 radar were initially developed for the Su-35S fighter, indicating the aircraft leverages the technology meant for the Su-35, which has already proven its combat prowess in Ukraine. Okay, now, see what I have highlighted here? It's so I didn't miss it, but this is what I want to talk about. Russian Su-24M bombers, Su-30SM and Su-30SM M2, which is the new fighters that are being delivered, multi-role fighters conducted precise bombing strikes on simulated targets during a military exercise hosted in July in Russia's westernmost enclave of the Kaliningrad region. As part of the drills, naval pilots performed flights to a designated area to deliver precise bombing strikes using P-50T heat-resistant practice air bombs and 30mm artillery shells. The targets represented simulated enemy airfields, personnel, and equipment. The whole range of contemporary and prospective high-precision air-to-air and air-to-surface armaments, such as an X-59 Mark II air-to-surface missile and KAB-250 glide bombs, could be equipped on the Su-30 SM-2 aircraft in the future, according to experts. Although the Su-30 SM-2's induction is new and it is yet to see deployment in the conflict against Ukraine, the aircraft on which it is based, i.e. the Su-30SM, has been extensively deployed at the front line along with the Su-35. The two jets operate in tandem to strike Ukrainian targets, okay? So they are ratcheting up, and these ships are being used in drills in Kaliningrad for a specific reason. These things are not coincidence. In fact, there is no coincidence anymore. We're past that point of this conflict. As for World War III, nothing is on accident or coincidental. Man, I needed a drink of coffee. So, Northern Girl Hobby says, missing a pile of those thumbs up, folks. get the thumbs up. It helps with the old algo and, helps get those notifications out there that everyone's saying they're not getting anymore. I appreciate that. Thanks for that, Northern Girl Hobbies. JJ, but thermal imaging has many more uses besides SHTF, like finding where heat leaks out of your house, failing electrical components, and etc. JJ, I will say I like both. I use both. And my biggest thing about thermal is that it's the first one you should get because it's the most affordable. You can get a thermal unit that's usable, at least, for a relatively affordable price compared to at least night vision. But night vision is more useful in the sense of being able to actually move around with it. And that's all it comes down to. I could run a marathon in pure blackness using night vision. You can't do that with thermal. So they both have their applications, but I don't think that one's necessarily better than the other. For example, I have deer in my property all the time. I see them with the thermal, so I know where they are, and then I can bust out the night vision and actually see them and like see them in detail. And take a shot if I need to, right? So like, there's just a lot of other approaches, I guess. But yes, I think thermals are very good and very practical, and yes, I use them for utility purposes as well, which I think is important. So, good points. I agree with you. I just wanted to share my thoughts and experience as well. Now, we also have some issues in Eastern Europe regarding the fact that we can't really afford it anymore. U.S. and EU struggle to agree on funding for Ukraine. Concern is growing over Ukraine's ability to continue its defense against Russia should delays of Western funds persist. If we can't afford to fund that, it's over. Now, what happens when we can't afford to fund all the other conflicts? Okay, so what? Are we going to fund Guyana? Are we going to fund Israel? Are we going to fund whoever else ends up next? Taiwan, right? If we can't afford to keep Ukraine going, we can't afford to keep these other countries going, and our enemies literally know it. And that's why a lot of these things are happening right now. Venezuela is looking at what's going on with Ukraine, looking at what's going on with Israel, looking at what's going on with Taiwan, and looking at what's going on in general when it comes to, our projection of power throughout the rest of the world. And they're thinking maybe now's the best time. And they might be right, because we're spread too thin to even just give Ukraine more money, which, look, I'm not trying to say we should. We got our own problems, and a lot of money's already been sent over there. So that's not what I'm trying to talk about tonight, though. What I'm trying to say is that we're already in a bad spot, and this war hasn't even gotten to maximum capacity yet. Uncertainty is growing over Western backing for Ukraine amid Russia's intensifying campaign to knock out the country's energy infrastructure, which, by the way, is just what they do now. So if we do find ourselves in a hot conflict here at home, better say bye-bye to that power, right? The White House has warned the United States Congress that funds designated for providing aid to Ukraine would run out by the end of the year. In a letter made public on Monday, the European Union is also facing difficulties in agreeing on a new 50 billion euro lifeline for Kiev. Okay, and this is published today. So this is, they're saying, end of the year. It's all we got left, unless something changes. And what would the end of this year look like if that's actually the case, right? I want to be clear. Without more congressional action, by the end of the year, we will run out of resources to procure more weapons and equipments for Ukraine, the director of the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, Shalanda Young, wrote in a letter to House Speaker Mike Johnson. In the face of an upcoming harsh winter of intensifying Russian assaults on civilian infrastructure, the lack of funding could mean defeat for Ukraine, warned the budget director. If Ukraine's economy collapses, they will not be able to keep fighting, full stop, she wrote. Okay, now, World War III wouldn't be a world war if we weren't talking about other continents. So let's check in on Africa real quick, just in case. And good morning, Venezuela says 762 by 54R for when you are not a fan of follow-up shots. Well, you know what? I don't have a Mosin Nagant or anything else chambered in 762 by 54R, even though a Droganov would be cool. But I do have a 308 at least, and I think 30-06 is kind of the equivalent of 762 by 54R. But we all know it's still a little heftier. It's definitely the guy she told you not to worry about. But hey, I got 308. I'm feeling okay with 308. Anyway, let's keep going. Africa. This is important because it's relevant to what's happening here in the United States. And I want you to be aware that we're not the only country this is happening to, or the only continent that this is happening to. And because of that, it should remind you that this multifaceted war we're all experiencing together collectively now is more than just guns. It's more than just naval warfare. It's more than just drones. It's people, right? It's strategic placement. It is putting the pawns into place in order to have checkmate, right? So, Niger coup leaders repeal law against migrant smuggling, 27th of November. Okay, why does this matter? Hold on a second, I'll get there. Coup leaders in Niger have overturned an 8-year-old law criminalizing migrant smuggling in the country. The legislation allowed authorities to take action against smugglers who transported migrants through Niger's vast desert onto Libya and Europe. Hold on. But President Mohamed Bazoum, who had worked with the EU to stem the flow of people across the Mediterranean, was overthrown in July in a coup. General Abdurrahman Tichiani has since declared himself the new head of state. I probably said that wrong. We're good, though. His ruling junta announced the repeal in a statement, saying the law did not take into account the interests of Niger and its citizens. I guess if you want your citizens to leave. It also said convictions handed down under the 2015 law would be erased. All right, the move is an indication that the junta in Niger's capital, Niamey, plans to assert its authority over the country's sovereignty in defiance of international pressure. Following the coup in the summer, the European Union suspended all security cooperation with the landlocked country in West Africa. Okay, now, understand, there's a lot of things happening here. In 2015, more than 1 million asylum seekers and migrants tried to reach Europe, prompting the push for Niger to pass the now overturned law. Does this remind you of anything? Do you think this has any relevance here? Nick, America seems to help everybody when needed, but when or if we need help, who do you think would help us with financial and military supplies? Well, Nick, I'm going to tell you something that I'm concerned about here. China, they're going to help us. You know why? Because there's plenty of people in our country and in our government who would gladly let China help us. And gladly let China help them stop anyone else who wasn't in agreement or wasn't trying to allow China to help. So keep that in mind. Just my 2 cents. I'm just going to throw that out there. Now, why did that matter? Why did Niger overturning that law matter? Well, if you think the southern border crisis is a problem, then this is the same thing. And the same groups are involved with this. We have Iran, we have Russia, and we have organizations that, like to, implant sleeper cells on occasion. So let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick and see how it applies to what we do here in the United States, okay? Jihadist recruiters prey on migrants to Europe. This is from January of this year, January 17th, 2023. This is the Jerusalem Post, okay? And look, I just grab stuff from any news source that has something relevant to what it is we're discussing. I try to make it from many different sources. I don't just reference, 1 or 2, but sometimes they pop up multiple times in a conversation. It is what it is, okay? Jihadist organizations such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda take advantage of the vulnerability of African migrants who enter Europe illegally to radicalize and recruit them. The organizations profile the targets on social media when they seem detached from society and unhappy, which they frequently do. They are then drawn into the world of terrorism with propaganda and appealing discourse. This is one of the common methods that the jihadist terrorist organizations use to launch cells in Europe. Cells. Says Christian Rico Sevilla, a Spanish specialist in insurgents and jihadist organizations. He told the media line that Islamic State and Al-Qaeda are the 2 main jihadist organizations that have needed infrastructure to operate in Europe, either to seek migrants to radicalize and recruit or to launch cells that are formed and matured in Africa before being launched to Europe. They recruit people in Africa who are already radicalized, and when they have a group that they believe has the potential to achieve whatever goal they have set in Europe, they gather them in places they own in the Sahel or in the Maghreb, train them, and then send them off. Okay. Cell relocation. There are several ways to relocate the cells in Europe, he notes. The cell members who are not yet profiled by the international authority as part of these organizations can be sent either by plane through Turkey or via the Spanish protectorates in Morocco, Ceuta, and Melilla. The profiled ones are usually sent to Europe through illegal migration routes, he points out. When they arrive, Rico Sevilla continues, they know exactly what to do and where to go to receive all the benefits that refugees receive in Europe. They then need to begin the phase of infiltration in society. Okay? Another method used to launch cells in Europe is to target migrants who are in vulnerable positions, radicalize them, and finally recruit them to become operatives. You see why that law was likely overturned? It's because the junta, the new ruling power in Niger, has ties with countries like, I don't know, Russia. And so let's not forget China's, Belt and Road Initiative going through Africa as well. Do you think there was any pressure on them to repeal that law? Do you think there was any pressure on them to allow more migrants to illegally get through in order to make their way to the Mediterranean and eventually to Europe? Do you think they're radicalizing people before they get there and allowing them to establish cells in the process? Yes. To all those questions, yes. And that's the exact same thing and exact same strategy they're using against us in the United States through the southern border. So this is multifaceted. We have action in the South America, basically, at this point. I mean, it's just a matter of time based on what's going on there. But we also have this exact style of coordinated illegal migration as part of fifth generation warfare and World War III. So, what else is going on? A lot. It's not a big deal. By the way, members only live stream tonight starts at 10 because there's a little bit extra to go over tonight, so I didn't know if I'd make it in time for 9:45. So if you're a Subscribe Star member or if you are a YouTube channel member, make sure you come check it out. It's a just private hangout where we just talk and discuss things that don't necessarily have to be related to anything. And Subscribe Star also has some exclusive content. So if you're interested in that, check it out. And everything just went haywire on my computer, so hopefully I'm still live. I just put it in the live chat for you if you want to check out the Subscribe Star. I will see all you members tonight at 10 p.m. The link is either on the Subscribe Star or in the community page. So, what about China? Oh yeah, I forgot. We have to deal with all that too. I'm trying to bring it home here. We are talking about an entire world at war. So we have to go over to Asia, right? Okay. U.S. Navy responds after China claims American warship illegally intruded into the South China Sea. This is from today. The USS Gabriel Giffords, which just don't. The USS GG was commissioned on June 10th, 2017 in Galveston, Texas. Okay, China has accused a U.S. naval ship of having illegally intruded into waters near the Second Thomas Shoal, an area of hot territorial dispute between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea. The Chinese military ordered its naval force to mobilize and track the USS GG on Monday after China claimed the warship violated its sovereign waters, according to a statement from the People's Liberation Army Southern Theater. The U.S. deliberately disrupted the situation in the South China Sea, seriously violated China's sovereignty and security, seriously undermined regional peace and stability, and seriously violated international law and basic norms governing international relations, fully demonstrating that the U.S. is the biggest threat to peace and stability in the South China Sea, the Chinese military Southern Theater said. That's a very serious statement based on the fact that they use the word serious so often. But it also shows that this is how they're responding to it. The U.S. Navy 7th Fleet denied the accusation, saying the ship was conducting routine operations in international waters consistent with international law. The USS Giffords is a literal combat ship designed to operate in coastal areas. Get this thing out of here. Okay, so China mad? We're mad. Everybody's in the South China Sea doing this or that. It's getting weird over there. Don't worry, there's more stuff happening in China. Crazy Joe, thanks for joining. I really appreciate you joining the membership. That's awesome. All of you that support me here are awesome no matter what you do. And honestly, I don't expect everyone to be a member or anything like that. That's not the purpose of it. It's just a little perk thing if you want to support the channel directly. But honestly, just being here and watching is supporting me. Likes and subscribes and everything else are supportive too. Everything is really appreciated. And I love coming here on Monday night and making this happen. I really do. So, what else is going on in China? Anyway, let's talk about biowarfare. Not for any particular reason, okay? I have two different perspectives on this that we're about to go over. Derek Mason, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay. Mystery virus in China now like COVID and threat to UK as global experts fear pandemic. The Mirror is a very, let's just say, excited news agency. They're very excited about things. They want you to be excited too. A mystery illness has been sweeping through China and now threatens the UK, with experts suggesting we could see another COVID-like scenario. No, or at least not for me. Countries neighboring China, such as India, have now raised their alert levels to high amid the rapid spread of the mystery strain of white lung pneumonia. The alerts are aiming to prevent the COVID-like virus from spreading out of China and affecting other countries, similar to how the deadly coronavirus became a global pandemic in the late 2019 and early 2020. Wow, it's just so similar. I can't believe it. Like, these things only happen right before an election year, right? I mean, that's how viruses work. I have learned that over the years. Science, they've taught us so much. The respiratory disease has overrun hospitals in Beijing after a major surge in the last few months. It has proven particularly difficult to track, as there are many infected people who are showing no sign of symptoms, not even a cough. The World Health Organization is also closely monitoring the spread of the disease. Some states in India are now preparing their health services to prepare for the virus to spread through the country, boosting their medical infrastructure due to the pneumonia outbreak. Experts have briefed medical staff and sufficient supplies have been brought in for India to cope should the disease spread, the Daily Star reported. Okay. This is something we should watch. We should keep an eye on it, right? Biowarfare is already a thing. Right? CBRN, the B in CBRN is there for a reason. It's not like we're all unaware of the concept of biowarfare. Fifth generation warfare, World War III currently occurring, anything like this we should definitely side-eye and keep an eye on. Now, here's a more or a less enthusiastic or a less excited take on the same thing, because I just want to look at both sides of it. I really do. It's important for us to kind of like not freak out about things, especially after last time, but it's also good for us to kind of keep a level head based on contradicting information, right? So we already read the Mirror's report saying like this crazy thing. China's respiratory illness rise due to known pathogens, official says. This is from December 2nd, today, okay? Shenzhen, China, which, by the way, could also be a misdirect. The fog of war is real right now. We have to really consider a lot of different possibilities here and not just write things off immediately, but also not buy into the hype either. China's surge in respiratory illness is caused by known pathogens, and there is no sign of new infectious diseases, a health official said on Saturday, as the country faces its first full winter since lifting strict COVID-19 restrictions. So, one thing I want to just mention, okay? This is a Chinese health official saying this. So, okay. Read that at face value as you will. But the other thing to keep in mind is, it is also true that they literally have been the most strict when it comes to lockdowns and everything else over the last few years. Like, I wouldn't doubt, and this is just from like a logical, like kind of like practical standpoint, it wouldn't surprise me if part of the problem here is just that their entire population's immune systems are just trashed now, and that they get sick from everything because they've been so sanitized and isolated for so long that they finally came out of these sanitized, isolated environments, and suddenly everybody's sick. And suddenly everybody's got this respiratory illness, right? And suddenly it's winter. So I think logically we can actually deduce that some of this could just be because of how they were treated over the last few years. But we don't know that for a fact, which is why we should at least pay attention. We also know we're at war with these people. And China's at war with us. Like, I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. But like, this is all happening. Okay? All right. The spike in illness in the country where COVID emerged in late 2019 attracted the spotlight when the World Health Organization sought information last week, citing a report on clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children. Chinese authorities will open more pediatric outpatient clinics, seek to ensure more elderly people and children receive flu vaccines, and encourage people to wear masks and wash their hands. Mai Feng, an official with China's National Health Commission, told a press conference. Doctors in China and experts abroad have not expressed alarm about China's outbreaks. Really? Given that many other countries saw similar increases in respiratory diseases after easing pandemic measures, which China did at the end of last year. So, you tell me, okay, is that last article cope, or is it legit, more logical, or is the first article more reasonable? Of it being, an unknown disease that's just like suddenly taken over and might be related to World War III. I don't know. But I wouldn't put it, past China to do that right now. It seems reasonable, right? And you know what? Something you guys need to be aware of. It's just me bringing this up, but China benefits from our chaos and our disorganization. So doing another COVID during an election cycle, it's like the best idea ever if you just want to completely disrupt America and ruin all of our integrity and faith in any of our governmental systems, right? So just keep that in mind. Like we have to be open-minded to a lot of these different possibilities at this point in time. Okay, so let's see here. Viv B, Magic Prepper the Gathering. That is what we actually have here. You're absolutely correct. We are gathering magically to discuss a lot of things. So thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it. Now, what else do we have to worry about? Worry? I'm not really worried, but I want to be aware of what's going on. So China has some other fun stuff going on. And one thing I wanted to bring up, talking about like bioweapons and stuff like that, what about chemical? Well, chemical's a problem. China's at war with us via fentanyl. If you don't know that, I have old videos about it. Go look them up. Like there's a lot of information out there about how this all works. They use the drug cartels in Mexico to get the fentanyl into America, which then leads to more problems. But fentanyl can be used as a weapon, more so than it already is. It's already being used as a weapon. It's destabilizing us. It's creating more crime. It's creating a lack of survivability of those who become addicted or get duped into taking these drugs. Like there's a lot of multifaceted reasons why it's already being used as a weapon. But it also can be used as like a legitimate weapon. It may seem odd to classify fentanyl as a weapon. This is from The Intercept, and I believe this is from a couple years ago. But I wanted to touch base specifically on this part. It may seem odd to classify fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, like a chemical or biological warfare agent. But as a threat to our first responders and in the interest of public health and safety, we handle it as a threat in exactly the same way. Lieutenant Colonel Tyler Royster, commander of the 10th Civil Support Team of the Washington State National Guard, said in a March 30th press release, the unit provided support to state police responding to the Thurston County, Washington jail following 6 fentanyl overdoses. Civil support teams, also known as WMD-CSTs, are federally funded active duty military personnel under the National Guard that provide support to civil authorities in cases of the use or threatened use of a WMD. The Washington WMD-CST unit worked with a SWAT team to eliminate on-site hazards using a sophisticated spectroscopy device to scan for fentanyl. None was detected. The U.S. military has also sought to conduct military exercises simulating fentanyl weapon or WMD attacks. In June, the Wyoming National Guard's WMD Civilian Support Unit, as part of an exercise called Vigilant Guard, planned a scenario in which a conflict between rival drug gangs escalates into a weaponized fentanyl attack. International narcotics networks, in coordination with international military competitors, exploit regional narcotic distribution networks to increase violence between rival gangs and push a narrative of America being unsafe via social networks, says the ominous description of one scenario in a procurement document. Additional targeting information reveals plans for a retaliation shooting and use of aerosolized car fentanyl on a rival gang location in Cody, Wyoming and Powell, Wyoming. Our military is drilling for that real possibility. This stuff is legitimately capable of being used as a weapon of mass destruction. This article is actually from October 2023. So I guess I thought it was even older than it was. But this is a real issue. And fentanyl is in the country and it's distributed by those who work directly with China. And those same people are the ones who are helping Hezbollah establish cells in the country. So if Hezbollah has access to the fentanyl, and the fentanyl can be used in an aerosolized way, which would allow it to be distributed in the sense of like a weapon of mass destruction, do you think this has any real possibility to it? If you know anyone in law enforcement, talk to them about fentanyl and talk to them about what it's doing to our country, how prevalent it's become, and how destructive it is. And they'll tell you, I'm sure. And you might be very surprised to hear what they have to say, because maybe it's just not something that's on, top of mind for the average citizen. But anyone who's in law enforcement is probably extremely concerned about this possibility at this point in time. And China's all over it. They're giving the fentanyl to the cartels to bring in. You have to look at it almost as the same as if they bought gave a nuclear bomb to the drug cartels, had them smuggle it across the border, handed it off to Hezbollah's sleeper cell, and then said, when the time comes, we'll let you know. Same exact premise. So why would there be any different response? And according to the National Guard, it's not a different response. Their weapon of mass destruction unit is handling it directly. That should tell you a lot. That should tell you a lot, okay? Now, are we at war with China? Yes. I don't know what else to say. Are you still going to buy a Holosun? Yeah. We're going to buy what we need to buy or what we can afford to buy until we can't buy it anymore, right? I get it, but it is what it is, okay? Anyway, China's military built up enough to win a war with the U.S. Asia Times says so, okay? This is from November 30th. Fastest military expansion since World War II and campaign of non-military attacks suggests China is actually already at war with America. Huh. I don't know anyone who might have said that already. But let's see what they have to say. I told you this was a huge update. We're already past the hour mark, but we have to keep going. There's still more to talk about. I know, Magic's lost his mind, but we're going. We're doing it anyway. And I appreciate you all for hanging out with me. The United States Department of Defense recently published its annual report, Military and Security Developments Involving China. This China Power report provides a detailed description of the People's Republic of China's military as well as its capabilities and likely objectives. The section on China's rapid nuclear weapons expansion created a particular stir, especially as it caught many observers by surprise. A friend asked what this writer made of it all. But is there really a Chinese military buildup? American analysts now mostly agree there is a rapid expansion of China's nuclear arsenal. It reflects the broader rapid growth of the People's Liberation Army capabilities over the last 20 years. That growth is fairly considered the biggest, fastest military buildup seen in any country since World War II, possibly the fastest in human history. For many years, the expert consensus on China's nuclear warhead inventory was it numbered around 300 or even fewer. Then in 2021, that estimate changed, all of a sudden to over 400. And now it's estimated to be 500 warheads, with that number expected to double by 2030. As importantly, the PRC is developing more and increasingly effective and accurate delivery systems for its nuclear weapons. It's worth noting that expert consensus has usually underestimated the rate at which Chinese military capabilities of various sorts develop. In fact, the experts collectively often miss by a decade or two. Take PLA Navy aircraft carriers. The thinking was that the Chinese would need decades to even begin to master carrier operations. Indeed, such was the lack of concern, if not condescension, on the U.S. side that then PACOM commander Admiral Timothy Keating noted in 2009 that he saw nothing wrong with the PLA Navy having aircraft carriers, and that he would do what he could do to help if asked. Great. Well, now it has 3 carriers and is rapidly figuring out how to use them. Okay? Now, give me 1 second. I'm going to find a little section here that I wanted to share with everybody. And this is what happens, but where are you? There is a particular, there we are. See, I knew I'd find it. And in case you're wondering, yes, I did recently order a Chinese-made drone called Potensic. I got the Atom SE, and I will be testing it and evaluating whether or not a $200 drone can provide any practical preparedness benefits for the average person. And so far, after flying it and learning how to use it, I think it probably can. But more on that later. This is not just a shooting war. What? No. The only way war works is with guns, right? Nope. But while we're talking about a future war, the Chinese reckon they are already at war with the United States. Indeed, the PRC has been attacking us on economic, financial, biological, think COVID. I didn't say it, this article did. Chemical, think fentanyl. What? That got mentioned? Cyber, political, psychological, and media propaganda fronts for a few decades. The kinetic war will come in due course, if it's even necessary. The U.S. elite and political classes by and large refuse to recognize what China is doing and what it has in store for us. China aims to defeat us and to dominate us. Even more maddening, Wall Street and the U.S. business class has been funding the Chinese buildup. They have been pressuring successive administrations and U.S. politicians not to respond, arguing that we should do nothing that the Chinese won't like and that might threaten their own gravy trains. We're at war, and we might just lose. Grant Newsham is a retired U.S. Marine officer and former U.S. diplomat. He's the author of the book When China Attacks, A Warning to America. Okay. You heard it from someone else this time. I wanted to make sure that I could show you that. It's not just Magic Prepper being a crazy guy always talking about being at war with China. Look it up. Do some research. You'll be very surprised as well as concerned as to what phase of that war we're actually in now. Okay, moving on. Magic, buying and trading with the enemy. Yeah, we all are. Every single one of us is. Anyone who's using any piece of technology right now is, right? So that's what we've done to ourselves. It's too late now in many ways. Support American manufacturing companies when you can, right? Don't buy first aid kits from China, right? Buy Refuge Medical or something else made here in the USA, but do what you can. But you know what? Even the American optics companies, all of them still have to source a lot of their components from China, especially when it comes to like circuitry and circuit boards. Like that's just where that stuff comes from. So it's very, very difficult to get a 100% American-made anything electronic. Sorry, it's just true. Okay, so we also have North Korea. Oh wait, there's more? I told you it's a huge update. I wish more people would have seen it, but I know the replay crew is going to be chiming in tomorrow, and you guys are the winners for doing that. I really appreciate it. So I always like to say thank you to them because I feel like they feel left out when we don't talk to them tomorrow. I like talking to future people, don't you? North Korea threatens consequences after South Korea launches first spy satellite. Great. Okay, North Korea said Sunday a clash and even a war with South Korea was only a matter of time, about a day after Seoul's first military reconnaissance satellite was launched into orbit. And yes, this is from yesterday. The satellite, the first of 5 South Korea is planning to send into space by 2025, lifted off from the U.S. Space Force base in California on a SpaceX rocket at 10:19 a.m. Friday and reached orbit soon after, according to the Ministry of National Defense in Seoul. The National Defense Ministry said in a statement that the launch has given the South Korean military independent space-based surveillance capabilities. The satellite is capable of identifying objects as small as 30 centimeters, compared to North Korea's satellite that can reportedly spot only large objects. Ha, we have more money than you. Seoul's launch comes less than 2 weeks after Pyongyang's launch of its own spy satellite. North Korea's satellite, named the Malingwang-1, succeeded in making it into orbit on November 21st after failed attempts earlier this year. Considering the launch to be a breach of the 2018 Inter-Korean military agreement on Pyongyang's part, Seoul said it was suspending certain terms of the pact to restart surveillance activities around the border areas. Pyongyang responded to the partial suspension by announcing a total withdrawal from the agreement. In reaction to Seoul's satellite launch, North Korea contended South Korea's accusations of Pyongyang violating the 2018 agreement. Okay? Now, North Korea is always threatening war. This is just another version of that. But understand, we are allies with South Korea. If anything goes hot in the Koreas, we're involved. Can we afford that? Can we afford Ukraine? Can we afford Guyana? Can we afford Israel? Can we afford all these places all at once? I don't know. Can we afford America? Probably not. 34 trillion in debt. Here we are. But don't worry, we're ready for what North Korea might do. This should show you kind of what we're thinking. U.S. military unveils photos of training near DMZ amid heightened tension. November 30th, 2023. Seoul. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command has released photos of a U.S. Army Chemical Corps company conducting joint drills with South Korean forces near the demilitarized zone, amid heightened tension along the border with North Korea. Why are they so concerned about CBRN training? I don't know. American soldiers from the 59th Chemical, Biological, Radiological, Nuclear Company have been training together with the U.S. forces, Korea, and South Korean troops near the DMZ to bolster the combined defense posture, the command said in a post Wednesday without specifying the schedule. The New York, and also, by the way, wearing a gas mask and night vision, which this guy over here might even be wearing thermal, I'm not really sure, but wearing a gas mask with night vision with an ACOG just sounds awful. Everything about this just sounds awful with standard M4 stocks. Like, we don't even have like the gas mask visor clearance stocks or anything like that you can put on a piston-driven gun. So this just feels like it would be just totally awful. That's just my opinion based on some things I might have tried on my own. The New York-based company has been on a 9-month rotational deployment in Camp Casey in Dongducheon, 41 kilometers north of Seoul, since July in support of the 2nd Infantry Division and 8th Army Station in South Korea. The company attended the Ulchi Freedom Shield, an annual joint military exercise held by South Korea and U.S. forces in August. The training focused on reconnaissance and decontamination missions, as well as countering weapons of mass destruction and chemical, biological, and nuclear hazards, according to the command. They're worried about it in South Korea. The announcement of the drills came amid high tension as North Korea recently redeployed troops and heavy arms to the DMZ after vowing to scrap a 2018 inter-Korean military agreement aimed at preventing tension and accidental clashes near the heavily fortified border. Okay? This is how we're getting ready in South Korea right now. It's everywhere. It literally is worldwide. I know it's called that for a reason, but here we are, right? Tom Rolfson, good to see you. Glad you're here. Thanks for checking in. Let's see here. Buckshot Bill, one good with everyone being broke is that prices are coming down. 30 to 60% off. Get it while you can, because clearances like that are a death bell. I hate to agree with you, but you're right. And when you look at certain companies having clearance sales and stuff like that, or markdowns on products, it's because of lack of purchasing, right? It's because of lack of interest. So you lower demand, right? And you increase supply, and prices correct. Guess what? That's why the Fed has been raising the interest rates. That's literally the plan. Make things too expensive to buy so nobody buys it, and eventually it has to correct somehow. So maybe it's working a little bit, but it might have been too late. So more on that later. Keep your eye out this month for economic turmoil. Don't know why I said that. Why'd you say that, Magic? Don't know why I said that. Moving on. Okay. Hey, Tom Rolson, thanks for voting me for the Gundies. Vote for me for the Gundies. Link is in the description as well as in the pinned comment. I'm saying it again at the end in case somebody skipped ahead. Now, here's something I think many of us can suffer from, and many people are suffering from. And I just wanted to kind of mention this, okay? Business Insider. This is from November 30th. Shoppers are worried about the economy, so they're doom spending to make themselves feel better. Okay? Doom spending is the idea of spending money to cope with stress about the economy or foreign affairs. More than a quarter of Americans are doom spending, according to a report from Intuit Credit Karma. Strong consumer spending has helped prop up the economy in the past several months. Hey, Jay Gobelos, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, JetMech85, good to see you too. Americans are stressed out about their finances, and some are coping by spending more money. See the problem here? More than a quarter of Americans are doom spending in order to manage their worries about the macro economy and foreign affairs, according to a report by Intuit Credit Karma, which surveyed more than 1,000 adults in November. Some of the top concerns among respondents included inflation. The consumer price index increased 3.2% year over year in October, cost of living increases, unaffordable housing, and not having enough money for small luxuries or even basic necessities. Much like doom scrolling, we're seeing people mindlessly shop to soothe concerns about the economy and foreign affairs, which could take a toll on their financial well-being. Courtney Alev, consumer financial advocate at Credit Karma, said in the report. The rise of mobile shopping has also made doom spending almost as easy as doom scrolling. Almost $5.3 billion in sales revenue this Black Friday came from mobile purchases. Now, here's the part that's a little more interesting. The phenomenon is most prevalent among younger generations, with 35% of Gen Zers and 43% of millennials admitting to doom spending. Younger generations are particularly concerned about how tough economic conditions may impact their future wages, job security, and the ability to land a lucrative job, per the report. The rise in doom spending also comes as more Americans dig into their pandemic-era savings. So the reason I brought this up is because I don't know if it's necessarily directly related to the economy, but what I'm thinking, and this is just my opinion, and I think we've all kind of been in this place at least once before, so that's why I wanted to bring it up. I think a lot of people are feeling hopeless and feeling like our money is almost worthless anyway. And so how do I want to equate this? Have you ever been in the situation where you only have $10 in your bank account, let's say, right? You got $10. That's it. That's all you have to your name. It's you know that you should probably hang on to that $10, but $10 is almost the same as $0, right? And so people get to that point in their life where they have that last $10 and they're not going to save it. They're not going to just hang on to $10. They're going to be like, well, you know what? If this is all I got, then I guess I'm going to go take this $10 and I'm going to go have like one last good meal at Taco Bell. Or I'm going to go get, some snacks at the convenience store, right? Like they'll blow that $10 immediately because $10 might as well be $0. And I think that's a lot of what these people are experiencing. And I'm not saying that's the right mentality to have, but I think that a lot of Americans are feeling like they're already broke. Like, so why does it even matter? Like, if you can't pay your bills, then, well, the money you have isn't going to help that anyway, apparently. So might as well get something you want, right? And of course, that's a bad mentality to have. But what I'm saying is that I think it kind of just shows the condition of our country in many ways, which is very unfortunate. And it definitely affects the young people because it's harder for them to get good jobs. And, nowadays, these young people are starting out at $16 an hour, and that's not enough money to live on your own anymore. So like, what do they have to look forward to, right? It's a rough place that we're currently at. So here we are. Well, I think that's about it for tonight. I hope that I got the point across. This is World War III. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I'm not trying to, create any kind of a panic or anything like that. I'm just letting you know what's going on, and there was a lot to talk about. And if we went to every continent, including North America, but just not in the same fashion, right? Because we don't have a hot war in North America yet. We're at war, of course, but we have a hot conflict about to erupt in South America. We have the hot conflict in Eastern Europe. We have the hot conflict in the Middle East. We have a hot conflict about to erupt in Asia. We have Africa completely destabilized, experiencing conflicts in multiple countries all of the time on a regular basis. Like, it's going around and around and around. And we're starting to see similarities between our country and Europe and the same tactics being used against us. It's where we are. It's where we are right now. So, where we are. World War III. I don't know how else to say it. Hopefully this is something you already knew. I'd rather you know this stuff than it be eye-opening, because that means that the news is getting out to the people in the way it's supposed to. But in all reality, I'm assuming a lot of you have no idea some of these things were occurring. And that's good because, you're here to try to find those things out. So I appreciate that. And I'm glad that I'm able to provide you with that information. So let's keep this going. Every Monday, we're going to keep talking about current events, things that are related to preparedness. If you guys want to try anything else out at some point, just tell me what you think might be a good idea too, because I'm willing to change it up sometimes. I also understand the weight of all this information, and I think it might be healthy for us to just have a good time once in a while, right? So, MacGyver prepping, Demolition Man, excellent movie. Taco Bell is the best place to go, of course, and not to mention, if you don't know how to use the three seashells, then you're uncultured swine. So, you just need to know how to use those. Anyway, thank you all so much. I really appreciate the support. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell, because literally people are telling me every day they're not getting notifications. They're not being told new videos are out. I'm hearing it all the time. So do what you can in regards to that. Anything else you can do, take care of yourselves. Make sure you're prepared. Make sure you're ready to go. Make sure you have plans. And if you need anything else from me, magicprepper.com is a great resource. Besides that, it's going to be it for Magic Prepper. I'll see all the members here in just a minute.